Most of us spend a great deal of our lives talking to our thoughts. We analyze them, argue with them, believe them, fight them, judge them, and sometimes we become completely identified with them. A difficult thought arrives, and before we know it, we assume the thought is the problem. But what if the thought is not the beginning of the story? What if the thought is arriving later than we imagine? What if something deeper has already happened before the thought appears? This is one of the most important ideas in understanding the human organism. The body influences state, and state influences thought. Not always, not perfectly, but often enough that it deserves our attention. Imagine waking after a full night of deep, restorative sleep. Your body feels settled. Your breathing is easy. Your energy is stable. The nervous system is relatively calm. Now imagine receiving a mildly frustrating text message. You may notice it, you may even feel annoyed, but chances are you can move through it fairly easily. Now imagine receiving the same message after 3 nights of poor sleep. You are exhausted, your body feels heavy, your patience is depleted, your nervous system is already carrying a significant load. The same message arrives, but now it feels different, more personal, more irritating, more threatening, more significant. The message did not change, the state changed. And because the state changed, the thoughts changed. This pattern appears throughout human life. When the body is fatigued, thoughts often become darker. When the body is stressed, thoughts often become more defensive. When the body feels threatened, thoughts often become more catastrophic. When the body feels safe, thoughts often become more flexible. Again, this does not happen every time. Human beings are complex, but the relationship is real. The body participates in thought. This becomes even clearer when we consider the role of the nervous system. Long before conscious thought emerges, the nervous system is continuously evaluating the environment. Safe, unsafe. Predictable, unpredictable. Familiar, unfamiliar. Helpful, potentially harmful. This process occurs beneath conscious awareness. The body is gathering information. The state begins shifting, and eventually thoughts emerge that often match the state already present. A body moving toward vigilance may generate vigilant thoughts. A body moving towards safety may generate calmer thoughts. The thought is often participating in a process that began earlier, sometimes much earlier. This understanding can be surprisingly liberating. Because many people spend years fighting thoughts directly, trying to force themselves to think differently, trying to argue their way out of states that were never created by thinking in the first place. Imagine trying to calm a storm by shouting at the clouds. Sometimes the more useful approach is to understand the conditions that created the storm. What is happening in the body? How is breathing? How is sleep? How is stress? How is recovery? How is movement? How is nourishment? How is connection? These questions may not solve every problem, but they often reveal part of the landscape beneath the thought. And once we see the landscape, we gain more options. A simple example is breath. Many people have experienced moments where anxiety begins to rise. Thoughts become faster. The future begins generating endless possibilities. Attention narrows. The mind starts creating scenarios. From the inside, it can feel as though the thoughts caused everything. But often the body has already shifted. Breathing has changed. Heart rate has changed. Muscle tension has changed. Attention has changed. The state changed first. The thoughts followed. This is not a criticism of thinking. Thought is extraordinary. Thought allows planning, creativity, reflection, learning, problem solving, language, culture, civilization itself. Thought is one of humanity's greatest gifts, but thought does not operate alone. It emerges from a living biological system, and that system matters. The body influences attention. Attention influences perception. Perception influences interpretation. Interpretation influences thought. Thought influences behavior. Behavior influences experience, and the cycle continues. This is why understanding state can be so powerful. When we become aware of state, we begin seeing the early stages of the process. We start noticing tension before panic, fatigue before hopelessness, overload before reactivity. We begin recognizing that some thoughts are arriving from a body asking for support, not because the thought is false, but because the body is participating in its creation. And perhaps this invites a little more kindness. Not every difficult thought needs to be believed. Not every difficult thought needs to be feared. Sometimes a thought is information. Sometimes it is prediction. Sometimes it is memory. Sometimes it is imagination. And sometimes it is simply the voice of an exhausted organism asking for rest. The goal is not to eliminate thought. The goal is not to control every feeling. The goal is awareness, to become curious about what exists beneath the surface, to notice the relationship between body, state, and mind, to recognize that thoughts do not always arrive from nowhere, they emerge from conditions. And when we understand the conditions, we often understand ourselves more clearly. The body speaks, state translates, thought explains. And perhaps wisdom begins when we learn to listen to all three. Somalume. The thought is not always the first thing.